Look, I love Star Wars, love it, but even I have to admit that it's not, perfect. No film is, I guess, but to me, Star Wars comes pretty damn close. It's arguable that its universe is the most compelling film universe ever created. It's in the top 3 at least, along with the MCU and Lord of the Rings. But no franchise is without its flaws, not even the one in a galaxy far, far away, and the films have made plenty of mistakes, like misjudged writing, poor performances, plot holes, and more. But what is the biggest blunder that each entry in the franchise has made? Let's take a look. I'm Will for What Culture, and here are the single biggest mistakes each Star Wars movie has made. 12. The Phantom Menace. The script. Lucas has many talents, but writing dialogue is not among them. He's even been endearingly honest about this over the years, so it's a shame that he didn't just write the story for TPM and let someone else handle the script. Thanks to the writing, it's a pretty wooden story that's as robotic as a Trade Federation battle droid, and is positively drowning in endless exposition, plot holes aplenty, and some iffy attempts at comic relief. What also undermines it is the story's lack of importance to the rest of the franchise. The only significance here is Anakin meeting the Jedi, and since that meeting is so incredibly contrived, the film's story feels rather pointless. And just now, reading this script, I realized that it's going to make me very sad, so I'm going to throw in my favorite thing about each film too. Phantom Menace has the Duel of the Fates. Frickin' awesome tune. Chef's kiss. Mwah. 11. Attack of the Clones. Anakin and Padme. Attack of the Clones gets more hate than it deserves since it is actually an entertaining action film, but nevertheless it's easy to see why so many hate it. It's because of this love story. Anakin and Padme's romance is essentially how not to do a film love story. Both Hayden Christensen and poor Natalie Portman, who was pretty badly wasted here, are bad, and the dialogue is also bad, and there's zero chemistry or psychological depth to be found anywhere. In terms of what the worst moments are, Anakin's monologue about how he dislikes sand, and Padme telling Anakin they can't be together are peaks of cringeworthy. Upside though, I love those CIS spider droids with the lasers. The CIS had the best designs. 10. The Clone Wars, being a bad movie. Oh yeah, this movie exists. After seeing the first few episodes of the planned TV series, George Lucas suggested releasing them as a feature film to act as a pilot for the TV show. Still, it is a part of the Star Wars canon and gets an inclusion here. But it's just bad, folks. Come on, this should have been several TV episodes as planned. Structurally, it's a mess, with characters constantly appearing and disappearing, and every set piece feeling like a finale, meaning that the screenplay's roots as a television episode are painfully obvious throughout. Biggest upside though, it gave us the Clone Wars TV show, which was awesome. Also cool to have Christopher Lee back voicing Dooku as well. 9. Revenge of the Sith. Anakin's downfall not making sense. Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequel trilogy, but it's still not quite top-tier Star Wars. It expects viewers to buy Anakin not only switching from a decent, well-intentioned Jedi into a child-murdering psychopath in mere minutes, but also suddenly deciding that the Jedi are planning to take everything over based on the words of Palpatine, a Sith Lord. Yes, Anakin thought he could save his wife by going over to the dark side, but this goal shouldn't have changed his entire personality so radically. Also, in this technologically wondrous space future, the chances of Padme dying in childbirth were very small, while the way that Anakin believed Palpatine gave a damn about saving Padme at all was really illogical. Although, I'll be damned if my favorite thing isn't General Grievous doing his thing. I just love this guy, I can't help it. 8. Solo, being the safest film imaginable. Solo could be argued to be the worst live-action Star Wars film. Why? Because it represents the worst kind of Hollywood filmmaking. It's a safe, risk-free, assembly line movie which does nothing brave, interesting, or unexpected. There are no hysterical jokes, no truly emotional character moments, no heart-pumping action scenes, and, for the most part, not a single memorable moment. There are many other flaws too, like the flat direction and Emilia Clarke's performance, and many talented actors being wasted by the by-the-numbers plot. But the complete lack of surprises was what really killed it. Favorite moments? Gotta be Darth Maul though. 7. Rogue One, the characterization problem. Rogue One is pretty awesome overall and suggests an exciting, thematically diverse future for the franchise, but it wasn't all perfect and suffered in particular from its underdeveloped characters. Although the performances are mostly strong, nearly all of Rogue One's characters could have used more backstory and development. It's a sad comment that the only character who feels truly formed and developed is the android K2SO. The biggest problem though is Jyn Erso, who is perfectly well played but just too underwritten to be a great lead. I mean, if you had to describe her in one word, how would you do it? She's kind of just stock character 15 subcategory action woman. Best thing in the film goes to the fanboy orgasm trigger that is the Darth Vader final scene, obviously. 6. A New Hope, Mark Hamill's performance. With this one, the flaws are almost non-existent. A New Hope is one of the greatest blockbusters of all time and remains a visually stunning, perfectly paced, beautifully told, and wondrously thrilling gem that has lost none of its charm or heart with age. In terms of issues, there isn't much. The dialogue can be clunky, but only occasionally, and for the most part, it is a very well-written blockbuster. The main issue is Mark Hamill's performance as Luke Skywalker. Luke still works in the original trilogy since his arc is so well written, but Hamill's whiny delivery at times worked hard to undermine all the fine work in the script. Hamill is a legend now, especially in his voice acting work, and he was great in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, but his performance in the first film remains a little underwhelming. The best bit of this film is the trench run at the end. It's mind-blowing even today. I can't even imagine what it was like in 1977. 5. The Empire Strikes Back, the confusing timeline. Like A New Hope, this movie makes very few mistakes. It is the best Star Wars film. The only issue in particular is the confusing timeline. Luke is evidently on Dagobah for several weeks, while Han Solo and co. are having their escapades on the Millennium Falcon and on Bespin for what is clearly a much shorter time than that, yet the film implies the two events are happening simultaneously. This has always been very confusing and kind of doesn't make sense, and the film offers no explanation. Still, this movie is pretty much perfection on a plate. There are too many great moments to choose for a single one, but this is the film that gave us seagulls, so yeah, I'm going with Yoda's bad lip-reading musical number for the best thing to come out of this one. 4. Return of the Jedi, the childish tone. There's no doubt that this was most people's favourite of the OT when they were younger, but as one grows older, the cracks show more and more with each rewatch. Return of the Jedi is still good, and occasionally brilliant, but it lacks the power of the first two films, and has the worst script of the original trilogy, mainly because the tone is so childish and silly. The long stretches on Endor with the Ewoks are occasionally fun, but mostly just goofy, especially on a rewatch. It's still a fun watch, but these days Return of the Jedi does just come in a bit short of being a masterpiece. Best moment is Luke's confrontation with Vader and Palpatine. Just awesome. 3. The Force Awakens, remaking A New Hope. The Force Awakens is an excellent movie and a great return to the Star Wars galaxy, but the plot does have some undeniable issues. This is a retread of A New Hope whatever way you look at it, and while it's easy to see why Disney went via this easy option, given that they'd just taken on the Herculean task of continuing the world's most famous franchise, but this was playing things far too safe. The biggest error was the introduction of the Starkiller base, which was an astonishingly lazy plot device and yet another recycling of the Death Star. There's nothing wrong with the scenes on Starkiller base, but surely there was a more inventive location that could have been chosen for the film's finale. The Force Awakens is still a wonderful film, but the reservations many had about it were understandable. If you can overlook the rehashing of A New Hope, you'll have a good time, but if not, then unfortunately the movie is unlikely to hold up. Best moment is when Kylo stops the blaster bolt in midair. Blew my freaking mind. 2. The Last Jedi, the Canto Bight subplot. The Last Jedi has been sadly overwhelmed by the crazy backlash from the most extreme corners of the fanbase, meaning it's sometimes easy to forget just how decent the film mostly is. Still, there was a complaint that was absolutely spot on, and that's the scenes on Canto Bight. No one likes these scenes, and they get worse and worse with each rewatch. The subplot is drawn out, tedious, filled with contrivances, and also gets bewilderingly silly, which clashes terribly with the film's mostly dark tone. It's understandable that Rian Johnson wanted to show more of the wider Star Wars galaxy, but this wasn't the right way to do it. At all. The best bit in this film is obviously Wide Boy Kylo. 1. The Rise of Skywalker, the rushed pace. The Rise of Skywalker is overall a good film, and it wraps up the saga in a satisfying, emotionally resonant way, but it has its flaws and the mixed reactions are understandable. The film's biggest failing is how fast-paced it is. Important scenes are rushed through and many things were left unexplained. There was an easy fix though. This should have either followed the example of Avengers Endgame and been a 3-hour film, or it should have been split into 2 and make the saga a 4-episode one instead. There was a better film lurking within, as the story is pretty strong, but it just wasn't fleshed out enough thanks to how fast everything moved. Obviously, the best moment goes to seeing my boy Palpy back in the action again. Love that guy.